Hi there, I am the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit and for the soul. And it's titled, I offer you a little piece of my heart, the journey of the wounded healer. And I'll begin with a rather lovely little story I found called A Piece of My Heart. One day a young man was standing in the middle of town proclaiming that he had the most beautiful heart in the whole valley. A large crowd gathered and they all admired his heart, for it was perfect. There was not a mark or a flaw in it. Yes, they all agreed it truly was the most beautiful heart that they had ever seen. The young man was very proud and boasted more loudly about his beautiful heart. Suddenly, an old man appeared at the front of the crowd and he said, "Why, your heart is not nearly as beautiful as mine." The crowd and the young man looked at the old man's heart. It was beating strongly, but it was full of scars. It had places where pieces had been removed and other pieces put in. But they didn't quite fit right and there were several jagged edges. In fact, in some places there were deep gouges where whole pieces were missing. The people they stared. How can he say his heart is more beautiful, they thought. The young man looked at the old man's heart and saw its state and he laughed. "You must be joking," he said. "Compare your heart to mine. Mine is perfect, and yours is a mess of scars and tears." "Yes," said the old man, "yours is perfect looking, but I would never trade it with you. You see, every scar represents a person to whom I have given my love. I tear out a piece of my heart and I give it to them. And often they give me a piece of their heart, which fits into the empty place in my heart. But because the pieces aren't exact, I have some rough edges, which I cherish, because they remind me of the love we shared. Sometimes I have given pieces of my heart away, and other person hasn't returned a piece of their heart to me. These are the empty gouges. Giving love is always taking a chance. Although these gouges are painful, they stay open, reminding me of the love I have for these people too, and I hope someday they may return and fill the space I have been waiting. So now, do you see what true beauty is?" The young man stood silently with tears running down his cheeks. He walked up to the old man, reached into his perfect young and beautiful heart and ripped a piece out. He offered it to the old man with trembling hands. The old man took his offering, placed it in his heart, and then took a piece from his old scarred heart and placed it in the wound in the young man's heart. It fit, but not perfectly, as there were some jagged edges. The young man looked at his heart, not perfect anymore, but more beautiful than ever, since love from the old man's heart flowed into his. So a beautiful story, a little piece of my heart. Hope it speaks to you. I love driving to events, to places, to occasions with a passenger at my side. Now there is of course the joy of travelling with another, but it is more than that. In many ways some of the most rewarding ministry takes place in this time and place. What I love the most is that as I drive I listen. It's a time that is primarily when my ears do most of the work. I don't just mean these two lugs on either side of my head, by the way, but the inner ear, the ear of my heart. It is a time for deep, attentive listening, and I've noticed that people sometimes open up, particularly about their woundedness in this time and in this space. I think it has something to do with the physical proximity, as we are close, but we are not face to face, and somehow people find it easier to open a wound as they open the mouths of their hearts, and I open the ears of mine, my imperfect but beating heart. Now I know it is not my task to heal the other people's wounds. It's no one's task actually to heal another's wounds. I can't heal anyone or anything. I don't even think I can heal myself, or not completely at least. Yes, the wounds can be tended to, the emotional bleed can be stopped, and the pain relieved, but the scars remain, and the past cannot be wiped away. And I don't believe they should be. Our scars are marks of a life fully lived. They must not be hidden away, they are part of our lives. In fact, these scars can become our greatest assets as they help us to walk side by side with others, showing them that they are not alone in their suffering and that whatever they are going through, they can survive and they can grow, that love can rise again from that suffering and that meaning can emerge as something beautiful grows from that pain. And in many ways, my ministry is exactly this. It grew from my greatest sorrow, my greatest suffering, and it's not completely healed what has happened. Of course it hasn't. It cannot take away the pain. If I could change it, I would. Every second of my life I would, but I cannot. All I can do is create something beautiful from it. I can walk with others in their suffering and in their joy. I can live with courage. I can live from my heart. I can live with my wounded heart cracked open, undefended. And in so doing, I can know love. In so doing, I can live in such a way that my life will prove worth dying for by the love that I leave behind. To paraphrase my old hero, Forrest Church. I was thinking of the journey that is my life, as is life itself, as I was driving with a friend I've known for 20 years the other day. They have suffered much in their life. They were widowed over 40 years ago and have difficult relations with their sons. They are not the easiest company at times, as they live alone and are physically isolated due to health problems. They only leave the house if someone picks them up. I do what I can and I journey with them from time to time. As I sat and I listened to my friend, I thought of the number of times I have taken this journey. Someone talking and me listening. What a blessing it is. And they're a wonderful human being. They've got such wisdom to share. Wisdom that's come from their suffering and pain often though. Rarely in life do we journey completely alone. We journey in the company of others. Some are there at the beginning and they remain to the very end. Some are there at the beginning, but they do not stay until the end. Some come and join us for a while, but do not remain. Some are with us later in life and then journey on without us when we are gone. But we never journey completely alone. We always journey with others. Although sometimes it can feel like you're journeying alone, and I know that. Now, as they say, life isn't about the destination, but it's about the journey itself. In many ways, I'm not even sure it's even about the journey. Well, not wholly just about the journey. It's more about how you journey and who you journey with. For we do not sail the ship alone. And those that we meet along the way have wounds in their hearts and in their souls. No one has the perfect heart. The most beautiful heart, as the story, a piece of my heart illustrates, will have its jagged edges. It will not be smooth and the pieces will not fit together neatly. We are all wounded to some degree or other. Those wounds can be transformed into something beautiful. We can accompany others in their suffering. We make something beautiful in so doing. We can give them a little piece of our hearts and we can receive a piece of theirs. The most beautiful hearts carry their scars. If we live in love, we can bring some healing. We can become the wounded healer. In fact, it is our wounds that put us in a place where we can be of true service to one another. We are all wounded to some degree. We all have cracks within us. Nobody is perfect, complete, and who'd want to be? In fact, it's our wounds and our imperfections that put us in a better position to help others come to terms with who they are. It is this that breeds empathy and understanding. Who amongst us is not wounded in some way? Who amongst us does not bear the scars of life? It is our very wounds and the scars formed from them that makes us better able to help bring healing to others from their own wounds, or for them to find a way to heal. We don't heal them ourselves. There are those that say time heals all wounds, but I've not always found this to be true, you know. The wounds can get worse in time. It depends on so many things. I heard someone say this to someone recently, that time heals all wounds. And people don't know what to do. Why do they say these things? It's not necessarily true. Martin Luther King suggested that time is morally neutral. Things do not get better or worse in time alone. This applies to the wider society that we live in, but it also it's about personal inner healing too for our hearts and souls. Hearts do not get better or worse by themselves. Wounds do not heal simply with the passing of time. At least not all wounds. Sometimes wounds fester as time passes by. We get better, we heal if we are loved into healing, if we find love that brings the healing. By being lovingly supported, we can tap into that love that over time brings healing to the wounds. And then meaning can emerge, and as if we heal when we accompany others with their suffering. We become wounded healers ourselves, I guess. Time has a role to play, of course it does. But time alone does not heal. I have accompanied many people who have touched me deeply by their capacity to become wounded healers. They've helped me find healing. Their suffering has made them better able to offer understanding and compassion to others. But not in spite of their suffering, but because of their suffering. Their suffering is what brought understanding and deeper connection and patience to be with others while they go through the time it takes to heal. But sometimes that time does not help. It can fester a wound rather than heal. But we can become wounded healers as we help others through learning, through growing from our own suffering, through being loved through our own suffering. Now, the ancient Greeks understood the power of the wounded healer. Ancient Greek mythology tells the story of Chiron, who was a wise and benevolent centaur and a master of healing. During one of his adventures, Heracles visited the cave of Chiron. He'd been invited to a gathering there. Now, as we all know, it is impolite to attend a party without bringing something for other guests. And so Heracles brought along a flask of very strong wine. And the smell of the wine attracted many of the other centaurs, who began to fight over it. Nothing has changed over the centuries, it seems. And during the melee, Chiron was accidentally wounded on the knee by an arrow shot by Heracles. And it was no ordinary arrow, it seems. It was poison-tipped. And this was no ordinary poison either. It had come from the Hydra, a monster with many heads that was virtually impossible to slay. Now, while Chiron could show Heracles how to heal the wounds caused by the arrow's tip, he could not treat the Hydra's poison. As he was immortal, it could not kill him, but neither could he fully recover from his wound. He would have to live on into eternity with his wounded knee. Chiron, the greatest of healers, could show others how to heal, but he could never fully recover from his own wound. His wound would always show, so he walked on into eternity limping. And Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer. And the wounded healer was one of the most important archetypes identified by Carl Jung. For him, the image of Chiron overcoming the pain of his own wounds by becoming the compassionate teacher of healing was a powerful example. The wounded healer is someone who has gone through great suffering and has learnt from the experience of their suffering. Through transcending their own suffering, they are drawn towards the path of service, leading them to help others. This process strips away the selfish, ego-based feeling of being alone and isolated in their own suffering and their own woundedness. Instead, through seeing the wound through different eyes, they can see this suffering in others, and they can therefore lead others to find ways to overcome their own suffering. Their wounds may never fully heal, as Chiron's wound did not heal, but they can help heal the wider ailments of our shared life. They can be with us in our suffering. In his book, The Wounded Healer, Henri Nouwen envisioned the religious community as a safe haven where people could be open and honest about their own woundedness, their suffering and their loneliness. A safe haven where, through recognising one's pain, healing and recovery could begin. Nuon wrote that people today are Semitic nomads who live in a desert with many lonely travellers who are looking for a moment of peace, for a fresh drink and for a sign of encouragement so that they can continue their mysterious search for freedom. Now this speaks to me of one of the reasons I became part of a Unitarian community. It was for just exactly what he's described here, Nuon. Spirituality, you see, on an individual level is fine, but it only really comes alive in community as we search for healing and understanding together, as we bind together. Everyone is wounded in one way or another, and everyone is looking for healing and understanding at one level or another, even if they're not entirely sure what they're trying to heal from. We are all looking for love, for understanding, acceptance and meaning. We are the religious animal. To deny this is to deny an important aspect of our shared humanity. But none of us are the experts, at least not, I don't think so in my tradition. I'm certainly not an expert. But by coming together, we gain so much together. We need one another. We need to journey together. As the Buddhist Pema Chodron wrote in The Places That Scare You, compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognise our shared humanity. So, how do we begin to heal, to live whole lives? Well, it begins by knowing and naming our own pain, our own darkness, to not be afraid to show our scars. I always remember that scene from the film Jaws, when the great white shark hunters are going out to face the man killer and they begin to drink and sing sea shanties and, of course, show one another their scars. And the scars are marks of experience, of having lived the lives of shark hunters. Now, I know this is a bit of a macho setting, but I think there is something in it for everyone. Our scars, our wounds are symbols of the lives that we have lived, and we ought not to be afraid to show them. Not in some form of vainglory, but as a symbol of our shared humanity, to show that we have lived and found a degree of healing from our wounds, although no one escaped scar-free. By understanding our own woundedness and not hiding our scars, we can better serve one another and walk side by side with each other in our shared troubles. It's our very imperfectedness that best fits us for the task of journeying together in the fellowship of love, on that ship of love. Henri Nouwen wrote, "We do not know where we will be 2, 10 or 20 years from now. What we can know, however, is that human beings suffer and that a sharing of suffering can make us move forward. By sharing our suffering, we can begin to move forward, and it's this that can begin to bring about the healing and wholeness that we're all searching for, that we're all hoping for. This can grow from within each of us as we commune together, work together, do the work of compassion that our wounded world needs. We can begin it today. It begins in our own hearts, for we are all wounded healers. We can share pieces of our imperfect, beautiful hearts, sharing our perfectly imperfect, wounded hearts. I offer you a piece of my heart. Treasure it, and I will gratefully receive a piece of yours and place it somewhere in mine. So let's journey together. Let's journey on together, side by side. Let's tend one another's wounds, and let us become together the wounded healers, the ones the world's been waiting for. So I'm going to end this devotion with some final words of blessing. We need to bless more, and we can all bless. And we bless when we give ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So let's journey on, imperfect and yet somehow whole, unafraid of our scars, limping along shoulder to shoulder as wounded healers. Let us walk side by side, shoulder to shoulder, with our scarred hearts open and beautiful. We need never walk alone. Let us walk with open hearts and open arms, ready to be both givers and receivers of love, both givers and receivers of our beautiful hearts. Let's piece them together. And may the love that is God be with us as we move forward, and may it do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Amen.